All right, today we are diving into one of the weirdest and most unforgettable stories ever put to paper, Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. Seriously, this thing starts with a bang, an event so strange it's been making people's heads spin for over 100 years, and it forces us to ask some really uncomfortable questions about who we are.
Wow. I mean, just let that sink in. That's the first sentence. Kafka doesn't mess around. Now, you might think this is the start of some kind of monster movie, but no. This bizarre, out of nowhere transformation is actually the key that unlocks a deep, unsettling look at family, our jobs, and what it even means to be human in a world that, let's be honest, can feel pretty absurd.
So, to really get what's happening with the monster, we first have to understand the man. Who was Gregor Samsa before he woke up as a giant bug? Because, as you're about to see, his human life was already kind of a cage.
Here's the deal with Gregor. His entire life is about duty and pressure. He's a traveling salesman, and he absolutely hates it. You know, the constant stress, the bad food, never forming any real relationships. And here's the kicker. He's not even doing it for himself. He's working his tail off just to pay down his parents' debt to his own boss. Talk about being trapped. Gregor's whole existence is basically on pause, a total sacrifice for his family, with his own dreams always 5 or 6 years away.
You know, the funny thing is, the first sign that something is terribly wrong isn't his new hard shell or his wiggling legs. Nope. It's the fact that he's late for his 5 a.m. train. That's what makes everyone panic. Pretty soon, his boss shows up at the door, basically calling him lazy. And when Gregor tries to explain himself, all that comes out is this awful, squeaking noise. He understands them perfectly, but they can't understand him at all. The line of communication has just been cut.
So, when Gregor finally wrangles the door open, the reaction is exactly what you'd expect. Pure horror. His mother collapses. His boss runs for the hills, and his father, in a fit of rage, grabs a cane and literally shoves him back into the bedroom, hurting him in the process. The door slams shut, and just like that, Gregor's total isolation has begun.
This really gets to the heart of a nightmare, doesn't it? On the inside, it's still him. It's Gregor, with all his human worries, his memories, his love for his family. But his body? It's completely betrayed him. It's this disgusting shell that now craves rotten garbage instead of the milk he used to love. He is a human mind trapped inside an insect's body. I mean, it's the perfect, horrifying picture of total alienation. In the very beginning, there's a small glimmer of hope, and it comes from his sister, Great. She actually steps up and becomes his caretaker, bringing him different foods to see what he likes. But then, when she decides to remove all the furniture from his room to give him more space to crawl, Gregor panics. He desperately clings to this one framed picture on the wall of a woman in furs, because it's a link to his human past, to his desires. It's just this heartbreaking attempt to hold on to the person he used to be.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. As Gregor is physically wasting away, his family starts its own metamorphosis. See, with their provider now a burden, they can't just be lazy anymore. They're forced to get jobs, to become self-reliant. And this change for them is going to have absolutely devastating results for Gregor.
This scene is just brutal. Gregor's father, who's now working again and wearing this crisp new uniform, comes home and finds Gregor out of his room. In a blind rage, he just starts chucking apples at him from a fruit bowl. One of them hits him squarely and gets lodged in his back. It becomes this festering wound that he carries for the rest of his short life. It's this incredibly painful, symbolic moment of being cast out by his own father.
You can just watch their sympathy decay over time. In that first month, there's still shock and a little pity. Greet is trying. But by the second month, they're all tired from their new jobs. Greet barely cleans his room. He becomes an afterthought. And by the third month, it's not even neglect anymore. It's just cold, hard rejection. He's a burden that they want gone.
Things get so bad financially that the family has to take in 3 lodgers. And what do they do with all their extra junk and furniture? They shove it all into Gregor's room, basically turning his prison into a storage closet. This whole situation is just a ticking time bomb, setting the stage for the final tragedy. So one evening, Great is playing her violin in the living room. The music is beautiful, and it reminds Gregor of his own humanity, of his love for her. He's so captivated that he crawls out of his room. Of course, the lodgers see him. They're horrified, and they immediately announce they're leaving in the morning and not paying a dime for their stay. And this financial disaster, well, it's the final straw.
So this is it. This is the breaking point.
And it's not just about the money. The lodger's reaction completely shatters any tiny illusion that Gregor could ever coexist with the normal world. It forces the family to finally make a choice.
And the final verdict comes from Greta, his own sister. The one person who was his advocate is now the one who sentences him. She declares that it must be removed. She refuses to even call him her brother anymore. In that one moment, she strips him of his name, his identity, and his right to even exist in their lives.
And Gregor, he understands. He hears everything she says. He doesn't fight back, he just accepts it. He painfully drags himself back to his room for the last time. And as the sun comes up, he dies. The craziest part? His last thoughts aren't filled with anger. He dies thinking of his family with, quote, emotion and love.
So Gregor's story is done. But for us, the analysis is really just getting started. What in the world does it all mean? Well, this deeply weird story is actually packed with some powerful philosophical ideas that are still incredibly relevant today.
At its heart, the Metamorphosis is a story all about the absurd. I mean, Gregor wakes up as an insect for no reason. There's no explanation given, no logic to it at all. He's just thrown into this irrational, meaningless universe, which is a perfect picture of that absurdist conflict between our very human need for order and a world that simply doesn't provide any.
Kafka's also talking about alienation. Long before he was an insect, Gregor was already alienated by his soul-crushing job, a job that treated him like he was less than human. His transformation just makes that internal feeling external. He's isolated, he can't communicate, and he's a stranger in his own body. A powerful metaphor for the loneliness so many people feel in modern life.
And Kafka's genius is how he uses symbols to make these ideas feel real. The vermin body, that's what his job and his family duty had already turned him into on the inside. The father's new uniform, that represents the authority and dignity he gets back once he's not depending on Gregor anymore. That apple stuck in his back is like a twisted version of the biblical fall from grace, a violent expulsion from the family. And that picture he held onto, it's that last frayed thread connecting him to the man he once was.
And the final, chilling irony of it all? The story doesn't end with a funeral. Gregor's death is their liberation. They feel a sense of relief, take the day off work, and go on a trip to the countryside. They start talking about their bright future and how their daughter has blossomed into a young woman who's ready to get married. His personal tragedy is what allows them to be reborn.
So that leaves us with this final lingering question. Kafka's story is like a dark fairy tale, but its themes are absolutely timeless. It forces us to look at our own lives and ask, in a world that demands so much from us, our jobs, our families, society, what parts of ourselves are we sacrificing along the way? And how do we make sure we don't wake up one day and find we've become something we don't even recognize?